When this boy meets world, boy meets world. When this boy meets world.
What up, bro?
What up, bro?
Welcome to Bro Beats World.
One more time. Hold on.
What up, bro?
What up, bro?
And welcome to Bro Beats Bro.
What is Bro Beats World?
There you go. Your boy Beats World Fantastic. I'm Siege.
And I'm your boy, Tony Coitus.
Welcome to episode 52.
Ayo.
32.
This episode is about a pig.
This little piggy. Yeah. We go there. But I will say that there are layers to this piggy story that I would like to explore.
I actually found there to be layers, too. Here's the thing.
Would you say they're bacon layers?
There's gonna be a lot of bacon jokes. No, I just have to say that I think that this episode is the reason why I wanted a pig growing up.
Really?
And between this and Barney getting a teacup pig on How I Met Your Mother, like, it really influenced my decision. I was looking into it for a really long time.
I think I remember your obsession with getting a teacup pig.
I started a GoFundMe.
Yes, you did. That's so true. There was like a time when everyone wanted a pig. I'm like, why does everyone want a pig?
Since this episode, I want one.
Always wanting strength. You know what? I was the guy who, I didn't really want one, but if I was going to do one, I was going to do the pet monkey. That's my TV trope.
Okay.
You know?
The flinging shit is a deal breaker for me.
Oh, and pigs rolling around and shit?
Well, listen, CJ, I've looked into it. I've done a lot of research, and I can tell you that pigs only roll around in mud as a sunblock when they're outside, but if they're indoor, they do not need to.
Ooh.
They're smarter than dogs. They can be kitty litter trained, and, they can do dope tricks.
And this has been Pig Talk with CJ.
Don't get me started. I did have bacon last night.
Oh, God.
Disclaimer.
What would little Corey say?
I know.
Okay. Are you ready? Should I do the Tell Me About It?
Yeah. Tell me about it. Tell me all about the show.
I kind of but I never really know if we're going to do the extended version or if we're going to just get the radio edit.
I like it to be
unpredictable.
It's like, when you used to watch TV shows on syndication, you're like, are they going to do the theme song or are they just going to skip right to the episode?
Yeah, you're right. I like it. Anyway, I hope you like our anticipation. This is season 3, episode 6, This Little Piggy.
Yeah.
Eric is having aspirations of attending Yale, which we will not even go into. Meanwhile, Shawn decides to keep an abandoned pig as a pet, but Topanga feels that an apartment is not a proper environment for a hog. Will Corey side with his best friend or his girlfriend? Let's get into that. So do you just want to get Eric out of the way?
Yes.
Because he is the B storyline, but I feel like there's so much to talk about with Topanga and Corey.
Yeah.
And Shawn that I want to go into that. But Eric wanting to go to Yale.
First question, what's this show's obsession with Yale? Because it's the same college that Topanga turns down for Corey later on.
I will say that, I think a lot of writers go to Yale. I don't know that for sure, but I just think a lot do. And then, I find that a lot of TV shows promote Yale. And I don't know if Yale has anything to do with that or if it's just like not wanting to be Harvard. I really don't know.
I always thought that the reason why television shows always chose Yale or Harvard is because they wanted to, it was like a shorthand for this person wants to go to a good school.
Yeah, well, no, so here's the thing. I get that too, but Harvard is like American shorthand for Ivy League.
Yeah.
And I always wondered why they chose Yale in certain times as a substitute, because even in the show that I loved growing up, Gilmore Girls, she always wanted to go to Harvard, and spoiler, she goes to Yale. And like there's this whole storyline about her switching from her obsession with going to Harvard to her obsession to going to Yale. And I've seen it in a lot of shows where people aspire to go to Yale. I'm like, why Yale, not Harvard? What is the distinction between
Or
that?
Stanford or any of these other
Or any of
places.
these
Yeah,
other
yeah,
ones?
yeah.
Why not Brown? I mean,
Yeah.
like, I know why not Brown, but still.
There might be some allegiance there amongst the writers or the staff, but I just found it funny that Yale was what Eric chose.
Yale.
Out of all the colleges out there. But I do like him and Feeny having mentorship time. Like, I like that. I like the dynamic.
All right, so first of all, I do definitely love that immediately we get some Eric and Feeny story subplot. We get Eric, which, by the way, did he show Feeny a dirty magazine?
I think so.
Because he just straight up, it goes, the girls of something like of college or I don't know.
Ivy League.
The girls of Ivy League. And I'm like, what magazine would that be?
Maybe a Sports Illustrated. I mean, something you wouldn't show the principal of your
Either
school.
way, it's something that I'm assuming Eric is using for extracurricular time. So I was like, did you just show this to Feeny? And it's okay. But then also, we saw last episode that Eric wanted to be a weatherman. So like, there's some idea of aspirations, but he's choosing colleges based on girls.
Yeah, it almost seems like, I guess maybe the natural evolution of Eric. For a while, he was obsessed with girls, then he was obsessed with school, and they kind of just merged the two to make this conflict with him. But it is really dumb, because, like, Eric does no research on what Yale is. He doesn't even pronounce it right. He has no chance of getting into the school, and the whole motivation for the episode is Feeny kind of, like, allowing Eric to believe that he could get him into the school somehow.
Well, no, I don't think Feeny ever does that. I think Feeny allows Eric to be Eric, which is do no research, not really look into the situation, and assume. Because when one of my favorite lines in this episode is when Feeny's like, get you into the school, I couldn't get you into a yellow sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I like that one. But also, I think that when Eric bribes Feeny, which, again, you've known Feeny your entire life. You thought a bribe was the way to go.
And it's interesting how some episodes Feeny takes bribes and some episodes he
No,
doesn't.
but this one, he didn't really take a bribe. I saw it as he took it as an opportunity to mentor Eric. And he even says, he's like, my job is to be your teacher and your friend.
I thought that was interesting that he said that, because typically Feeny avoids building friendships. I think maybe because Eric's a little bit older, maybe he hasn't had Feeny hasn't had him in his class specifically.
I think it's clear that Feeny has, besides the writers being like, Eric and Feeny, I honestly just feel like Feeny has a connection to Eric.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because Eric's like the unteachable, or like Eric's more of a challenge than all these other students. I don't get it. But I did love this idea of Feeny basically admitting that he has a special relationship with Eric, and he takes Eric's education, Eric's future more seriously.
Well, what Feeny tries to convince Eric is, because Eric tries to bribe him with tickets to the opera, and Feeny is the one who's like, hey, colleges are really interested in people who have, like, interest in the arts and just, being well-cultured and things like that. And he convinces Eric to go to the opera with him, which I just thought was, I mean, obviously this is a B storyline. It's not a super big storyline or plot, but the idea of introducing children to the arts, I think, is a huge deal.
Absolutely.
And so I think even though this was kind of a silly beeline, I kind of respect it for what it was.
Well, it also showed it's not just introducing students to the arts for the sake of doing so. It's kind of showing Eric where it applies. He's like, by the way, colleges are going to look out for something like this.
Yeah.
He even then starts to speak Eric's language. And he's like, what if you go to one of these schools? Not going to happen. But what if you go to one of these schools and they want to know something? One of these girls wants to talk to you about culture. Wouldn't you like to have something to say?
Which I thought was really good.
And again, he's speaking Eric's language, which is girls. If girls were your motivation, how do you get a girl that goes to an Ivy League? You have to know more than just what you're willing to.
Sure.
And you have to pick up other interests. And I think that that's really great. I'm not crazy about the motivation, but I am really happy with the result, which is that, in a way, Eric responds to that, and he even picks up more interest at the end. He's like, "Whoa, what about ballet? And what about
Sure, yeah, I thought that was
all
really
this
cool.
other
yeah.
stuff?" Yeah.
I also like that Eric only got interested in opera once he heard Bugs Bunny music.
So first of all, the moment it starts, I was like, "It's Kill the Rabbit!"
All right, Mr. Feeny, look, it's a nice try, it's a nice plan, but don't you see, this kind of stuff is lost on a guy like me. Wait, I know this. Bum ba da ba ba bum ba da ba ba. It's Bugs Bunny.
Which again, I think, and please feel free to participate in this, but I think that that's kind of what both this episode is trying to say and what Feeny was just trying to say, which is that culture and art and all this stuff is all around us, and most of our generation does know that song as Killed a Rabbit. Like, it's like, we don't know it as, I didn't even write down what the composer's name was. Wagner. But I don't know it as Wagner. I know it as that scene, but because of that, I do have an appreciation for that music. And cartoons from earlier decades,
the Warner Brothers cartoons especially,
they're so good at using classical music
yeah.
And classical comedy. And there's so much art in those TV shows that for me, it's like, it was a way to get children, or just to get most of America interested and aware of things that were maybe beyond what they would have done on their own.
Side note, well, I kind of wish Warner Brothers cartoons were still like popping now. Like, they haven't been able to stand the test of time as much as some of these other cartoon franchises. And I mean, I'm sure they're all based off of speech impediments, and I'm sure there's a lot of other shady things going on. But it's interesting that they haven't found a way to modernize them the way they've attempted to modernize so many other franchises.
Well, they actually have. They've redone Looney Tunes quite a few times.
Oh, yeah.
And I will say that I watched, this was like years ago, I watched one of the newer versions of Looney Tunes. And it was actually really funny. It has the same kind of sense of humor, but with a modern take. And like everyone, instead of like their speech impediments being their defining characteristic, it's their personalities. So they really lean into Bugs having an ego, and they really lean into Daffy being selfish and self-involved. Sure. And those things to me are like, what's his name? The pig. Porky.
Yeah.
Porky kind of being like this low ball, like meek individual until like the pressure is on, and then he really comes in. All the things that were kind of in the original storylines, but focusing on that. And I think it's great. But unfortunately, with Looney Tunes, one of the problems is when you go back and watch it, a lot of America is in those shows, which means there's a lot of racial insensitivity. There's a lot of Pepe Le Pew is all about sexual harassment. Like
Speedy Gonzalez has a cousin named Slowpoke Rodriguez.
Again,
he's just, I know he's so tired.
And that's what I'm saying. There's lots of things where you're like, oh yeah, this should not be shared with children because it's a lot of what we're trying to rally against. But as someone who was already exposed to it, I can look past it.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? So maybe that's it. Maybe it's something we show kids once they're no longer kids.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, going back to the episode, what else did you like about Eric and Shawn's storyline? Or not Eric and Shawn, Eric and Feeny's storyline.
Again, I just thought that it was just a really important lesson for Eric to learn that college is about more than grades. And I like that even on the television show, they're showing the importance of extracurriculars and just having interests outside the school and the role that plays in college. I mean, obviously everything we know about college is a dumpster fire lie that's been told to our entire generation. But at least at the time of this episode, it was this thing that I thought was a pretty cool message. So
absolutely. And the only thing I will say is I like how it ended with Eric being like, no, I feel like the whole fat lady sings bit at the opera.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought that was cute and it was funny. So the main course of this is, let's talk about the piggy storyline.
Shawn finds a pig he said he was at his old trailer park, and he was where the trailer used to be parked, and he was digging around some old stuff, which is sad. And he finds a pig that got abandoned there. He says that the trailer park owner said that some guy just drove off and left him there. And so he brought him home. And he now has this pet pig that he named Little Corey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so you kind of like hit the nail on the head, but I think that what's interesting about this storyline is it starts off very ABC, TGIF. We have a pig now. And I'm like, okay, why are we doing this? Okay, whatever. But there is, even with that, I'm like, okay, well, what's Shawn's motivation for having this pig? Because he says, Corey, this has nothing to do with you. And then he says, meet Little Corey. And it is kind of like the thing, Corey assumes, oh, it's because you're jealous that I'm not around anymore and I'm with Topanga.
Yeah.
And so you feel like you need to do this. And Shawn's like, no, that has nothing to do with that. And I would agree. However, we still do have the storyline and the, I'll say, tension of Corey between Shawn and Topanga.
You know what? I thought it was interesting that he named the pig Little Corey as well. I thought it was one of those things where it's almost as if Corey, the name of Corey, is synonymous with the word friend. And I think that's how it's being used.
Beautiful.
For Little Corey. It's like, I'm not naming this person after Corey for the sake of naming him after Corey. I'm naming this pig after a relationship that's meant a lot to me, and I hope that my relationship with this animal will mean a lot to me as well.
See, so I love that, and I think your interpretation is so great. I kind of looked at it as Shawn being the caretaker, for once. And Corey's always his caretaker. Corey's always his rescue. And for Shawn to be in that position for once is kind of how I saw it. It's like him being able to pay back a debt that he doesn't feel he's able to pay back. At least that's how I saw it. But I like your interpretation just as much, because the idea that the word Corey or the name Corey is equal to friend to Shawn it's so truthful.
And it's interesting too, because once Corey sides with Topanga, you really see that Little Corey becomes Shawn's only Corey. And so just what that means to him, I just thought was really interesting, because you're right, because this could have been, I feel like there's a Full House episode, there's a Family Matters episode where someone gets like a pet snake or some ridiculous pet animal, and like the whole plot is like, oh, the animal got loose, or the animal caused a mess, or there's a chaos, or there's a party and there's a snake loose, some shit, whatever.
Yeah.
But the fact that they chose to make this pig symbolic of Shawn's story of abandonment, it's gorgeous. Like, it's so good. It's so well done.
When, again, I literally, and partially because of watching this, doing this podcast, I looked at this and I was like, what is Shawn's motivation? And even if they didn't answer, I wanted to know why Shawn felt the need to have a pig.
Sure.
But the fact that they answer it and they give you such an in-depth answer of it equals Shawn's abandonment, and Shawn doesn't think anyone should be abandoned the way he was.
Yeah.
Is such a pull on the heartstrings.
Yeah.
And just so beautifully Boy Meets World.
And, Turner at one point says to Topanga, like, I think Shawn needs the pig more than the pig needs Shawn.
Exactly. And I think that that's a really great way of showing that, he lives with Turner. And Turner is an adult who at any point in time we'd be like, no. But Turner isn't letting Shawn take advantage of him. He literally sees Little Corey for who he's supposed to be, which is some kind of emotional substitute.
And Turner even points out that Shawn takes really good care of the pig.
Exactly. And I think it's really great to see, even though the pig is seen interrupting Turner's wet dreams.
Yeah. One thing that I really love is that I feel like what we're going to see more of the season as well is Corey having ethical dilemmas where there isn't like one clear path for him to take. And I feel like in this episode where you have him agreeing slightly with Shawn, agreeing slightly with Topanga, and not knowing which is the right, like, I just want a right answer, just what is the right way to go, and there not being one.
I love that, because you're right, not only do we get Shawn's idea and Topanga's idea, and both are brought up validly, especially once we know Shawn's motives behind it. But Alan and Amy, they even have a discussion, and what I thought was important, one of the things that I thought was really important was when Corey is telling the story to Alan and Amy, he's like, well, I didn't want to hurt Topanga's feelings. And Amy's like, well, now Shawn's feelings are hurt. And Alan's like, why did you side with Topanga? Not that you can't, but why did you? What was your motivation? Did you just side with Topanga because it was the easier option, or because you believe she's right? And I think that is what I really liked about, we don't get the family as much as we used to, but when we do, it really is for them to parent Corey.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoy that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it was really interesting to have a storyline that, I mean, one of the things I think I would change about this episode is that we kind of hint at what it means, what Topanga and Shawn's relationship means to them. And I kind of wish they dove into that a little bit more than we got into it, because, you know, at the end of the episode, Topanga kind of comes to this revelation of just like, you know, obviously it's not my pig, whatever, but you're my friend too. I've known you just as long as I've known Corey, and you're my friend. You're not just my boyfriend's friend. But it felt a little... I think what I would have preferred is if Topanga and Shawn had had a private conversation, or they would have had a conversation where it wasn't like Turner getting involved or the animal control getting involved, just a conversation about what their relationship is without Corey.
Well, I think that this episode is great because as much as I usually like, especially an episode titled This Little Piggy and where there's a pig, you would think to skip over it. But this episode is important because it does address Corey, it does address Corey, Shawn, and Topanga, something that we know to be a trio, but they haven't really been for quite some time. And then it sets up that Shawn vying for Corey's attention and Topanga vying for Corey's attention. But then third, it sets up the idea that Shawn and Topanga aren't... Shawn says, she's not my friend. You're my friend. She's not. And it's crazy because when we think back on it, we know the journey that is Boy Meets World, and we know Corey, Shawn, and Topanga. That is like what we know as the trio. But I thought about it, and as far as Shawn's concerned, Topanga was just that other girl in their class for the longest time.
Yeah, definitely.
Corey has always pined for Topanga, and even that hasn't been consistent. It's Boy Meets World, but it's like they haven't been a trio. She's just was kind of always on the peripheral because of Corey. And now that she's dating Corey, Shawn's like, well, I mean, it's your girlfriend. That makes sense. But she's not my friend.
And I think it's one of those things that it was inevitable. It was inevitable that pairing Corey with Topanga would create this trio and create a tension in which both Topanga and Shawn would probably be vying for Corey's attention. But more so that these two characters that probably just thought of each other as classmates now all of a sudden are in a friend group together. And what does that mean for them separate from Corey? And it was interesting that they addressed that, and that Topanga, who is typically thought of as the most, you know, intelligent, forward-thinking person of the show, actually had a revelation of her own and came around to thinking, oh, maybe I didn't do this the right way.
Absolutely, because let's talk about that. Yeah. First of all, the moment we get it, I was like, oh, we're getting social justice Topanga again, which is crazy because she's just kind of been girl for like the last few episodes, and definitely the last...
Ever since her daddy took her shopping in New York.
Ever since her daddy took her shopping. And we're starting to see her dress more stylishly. And none of that's a problem, but it's just that we haven't seen social justice Topanga in quite some time. And so when they trotted her out, I was like, oh, is this just to be faux?
Yeah.
And I liked that instead we actually see her. Because I have to say, first of all, the moment Topanga was like, yeah, Corey, who are you going to side with? I was like, oh, I don't like this at all.
No.
And it's something that I understand someone her age doing, a girl being like, hey, you're my boyfriend, you're supposed to side with me. But then later on, when she calls
animal
control on a pet that's not under her care at all, and to a house that isn't hers, I was like, oh, you've overstepped.
Definitely.
And even they show Corey as being like, oh, this is a step too far. This isn't just you expressing your opinions. You literally got involved in something that didn't involve you.
Sure.
You did what? Topanga, he has a good home. Corey, let's get you out of here. You coming with us? Let's go.
Corey?
Look, Topanga, you put me in the middle of something, and I just gotta say, as much as I love you, that wasn't right. And now to call the animal control, I can't believe you would do that. Come on, Shawn. We got some serious pig hiding to do.
Yeah. And you know what? It was interesting too because the animal control comes and it's almost
Animal Control, who is Victor, played by Al from Home Improvement.
yes.
And I was like, it's Richard Karn. But I was like, is this like I was thinking for a second it was gonna be like a crossover moment, but I think it was just one of those stunt
Well,
casting.
I don't know if you remember me telling you that the sets were right next to each other and that the kids went to like studio school together.
Yeah.
So I mean, also Amy has a reoccurring role as Jill's friend on Home
She
Improvement.
does, I remember that.
Chet is Tim Allen's friend on Home Improvement. So there's a lot of crossover just because the sets were really close.
Okay.
But I thought it was interesting that it was ultimately Topanga who got Turner involved and came up with this idea to stop the animal control. So she understood that she overstepped and she took an action to correct that, which I thought was cool.
Very true. And then also, I kind of liked the Topanga and Turner pairing. Again, this is something we see very often. We don't really get to see Topanga and Turner. And I love the idea that Turner had a moment, just like he would with Shawn, just like he would with Corey, and really was like, hey, maybe there's more to this than you're actually giving it credit for.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, I really loved that Corey he's like, hey, Topanga, you put me in the middle of something, and that wasn't right. And again, there's just like this idea of fleshing Topanga out as a fully formed character, someone who, she's no longer that perfect girl. She is seen as someone who makes mistakes, and I think that's one step closer.
Well, that was also a criticism we had about her last season, was that she was always portrayed as just being just this so smart and so forward thinking and just always having the right answers to everything. It's great to see her fumble. Like, it's great for her character.
The one critique I will say is that they do so in the way that she's the nagging shrew. And that bothers me. I think we could have made it to where I would have liked to see her motivations for the pig more. I would have loved it if we got pure social justice Topanga, and she was doing this because it was for the pig, and we saw her really fight her case and not it be her pitting Corey against Shawn.
It would have been really nice if we saw that Topanga was like really excited about a pig. Like she has true emotions for animals, and like she loves the pig. So much so that she's like, that's the reason I really want this animal gone. It's because I care about this pig so much.
Exactly.
And it becomes a thing that maybe her and Shawn bond over, like both having this pig. One of the notes I took was like, I think maybe there's a scene a few seasons away where we see little Corey again, but we really don't see him after this episode.
Of course, why would it?
But one of the things I was thinking was that I really wish we did. I feel like in a world where, you know, Comet is essentially a character on Full House.
Yeah.
It would have really made Boy Meets World stand out to have something that just wasn't like a golden retriever or a dog or something like that.
The chicken and the duck on Friends.
Yeah, just something interesting. Like, it would have been cool, I thought. Wow, I didn't even think about the chicken and the duck. I wonder if this was a direct response to Chicken and the Duck.
That's a very good point. But I think that if it was, we would have seen him keep it. Again, I think that Boy Meets World does a lot of good. But if we would have shown Topanga, like, actually find a farm or actually find something, and in all honesty, I kind of liked the idea of Topanga being like, yo, I found the owners, and he's going back to where he belongs. Like, in all honesty, like, before the twist came and it was Turner, I was like, that's a really... Because now the pig is where he belongs, and Shawn knows it'll be taken care of. It's not just taking the pig away.
Well, I think what would have been great is if Topanga said, hey, I found the owners, and then the owners actually came in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The owners came in, and they were so grateful to have their pig back, and Shawn sees that the pig actually had a home to go back to.
And that someone was actually looking for him. It wasn't abandoned, it was lost.
Exactly. And so, for him to take some kind of personal gratification of knowing that I'm not abandoned. I just haven't been brought home yet. Something like that would have been a really great
Absolutely.
Because you're right. There's no other reason to keep the pig around if they're not going to include it in the show. So.
And there's no real conclusion other than Turner lying to help keep it. And again, I loved that Turner was willing to do all of this. I think Turner is shown to be a great paternal figure.
Sure.
Equal to Alan in terms of giving Topanga advice.
Yeah.
And doing his role as a guardian by helping Shawn keep this symbol of security and family,
home, all that.
Responsibility.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Did you have a turned on by Turner moment?
Well, did you ask me in an episode?
Turned on by Turner.
Ooh. Yeah, I did. Why? Because Turner is in a tank top. And I'm not talking like his little wife beater, which was good, but this one is just like that muscle shirt. We're getting the little sides. Turner was doing it for me. And we know he has sex dreams, so I would like to see where that goes.
Yeah, with Catherine, the woman from last season.
So apparently he's been seeing Catherine.
No, I think she walked out on him, remember? Because of Shawn. So I think he's just...
Catherine put it down because he's been remembering.
Yeah, 100%.
Also, like, again, I don't want to get too much into it, but we talked a while ago about Turner being young and single, Shawn being 16, and that place just smelling like semen all the time.
Yeah.
This sex dream and the fact that he had it like on the couch while the pig and just speaking out loud tells me that Shawn is definitely witnessing some things he should not be witnessing.
Yep. And I wonder if he just thinks it's cool. Like, yeah, that's what happens. Like, I'm a ladies' man too. I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I didn't like, if we're kind of wrapping this up, is Alan's kind of old school way of thinking. I loved Alan's advice early on, but when he was like, well, of course she is. She's a woman. I was like,
Yeah. Well, I think he says, of course he's going to side with Topanga. That's his girlfriend or something like that.
But even that's my point.
Sure,
it's just like loyalties or lines are drawn basically because of sex.
But I don't know, because I was thinking about that line too, because I immediately had the same reaction, but I was wondering, I was like, is he meant to imply that your relationship, your intimate relationship, romantic relationship is always going to be a higher priority than a friendship?
I don't think so. Here's the thing. If that was his response, I think it would have been in text. Amy even kind of looks at him and treats him like, that is stupid old school way of thinking.
Yeah. I think she gives him a slap on the
Yeah,
hand.
because he's basically saying what I took from it, which is that, well, it's a girl, and I mean, like, even Shawn later on is like, well, it was your girlfriend. I would have probably done the same thing. But again, it's not for loyalty of the relationship. It's just like, oh, are you going to give up access to breasts? I don't think so.
You ain't wrong.
I'm not going to lie. For Turner, it's just like, I don't know. What do you think we should do? Okay. Anyway, any other thoughts?
No. That's all I got.
Okay, so let's talk about a bro moment. Did you have one?
I honestly don't think I did for this one either.
It's fine. No, that's for me. The only thing that like I seriously, well, first of all, we get a little bit more exploration of Shawn's family, where Topanga's like, it's gonna get 500 pounds and sit on the couch, and he's like, I still love my aunt, whatever her name is, and I was like, okay, again, we're learning more about Shawn's family. But for me, the really big moment was that scene with Eric and what I'm assuming is something close to a Playboy and or Maxim.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was just like, he brought it to school. He's showing Feeny. I'm so like weirded out by this relationship and the fact that like, no matter what, it's still in my mind it was smut. And I'm not judgmental. I'm just like, what? And it always reminds me that this is pre-porn, or at least pre-internet porn. So every time I watch something like this or anything set in the 90s where people just go crazy over the access to a woman outside of their circle, I'm just like, really?
Yeah. It was...
But then again, it's like, is porn, but I don't know.
I do want to say, we said a lot about this episode. There was a lot of funny things about this episode.
Yes, let's
Like, the jokes that they're able to do with little Corey, like how well he was trained to be able to run when Feeny comes, and at one point they put, like, pants and a sweatshirt on him. Like, there was just a lot of, like, funny things that they did with that pig.
what to expect when you're raising a pig.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like how to talk to your pig about bacon. Again,
Yeah.
like all of these things, I agree with you. This was a funny episode. It was well done. I think that there was just so much emotion,
Yeah.
like being alluded to, that we wanted to make sure that we covered that. But yeah, do you have any other fun parts of this episode that you really enjoyed?
Again, just anytime that the pig was part of the joke, like when they're eating lunch together, or just anytime Shawn says something and the pig like agrees.
Oh, Shawn was using that pig as a pickup, and he
100%.
was killing it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, he was doing it so well in a way. I was like, I'm charmed by you and this pig in the middle of the bar.
Yeah.
Oh, but the only other thing I want to point out was like, Little Corey is not an emotional support pig. I mean, he is, but he's not certified as one. And yet, Shawn takes him everywhere.
I was gonna say that as a remark too, but then I moved to LA where people take their dogs everywhere, and then I realized,
Yeah, but LA is like kind of known for that. You're telling me in Philadelphia you can walk into a bar with a pig, or like any of the
more so
a
than with a
cafeteria.
black person, apparently.
That is true.
Um,
The pig I understand, but what's Eli doing here? Okay, any Feeny taught me or
I think the lesson really from that I took away from this episode is what Turner said to Topanga about, maybe Shawn needs this pig more than the pig needs Shawn.
Mr. Turner, I know you don't like the pig. So why do you let Shawn keep it?
I don't know, it just seems real important to him, I guess. He takes good care of the little guy. Topanga, when you've had the kind of life Shawn's had, I guess just in some ways, Shawn needs the pig more than the pig needs Shawn.
Mr. Turner, I think I made a big mistake.
I think it's a great example of how, everyone is struggling with something, and that you can't so easily judge someone's motives or their behavior because you don't really know the whole story. I think that was something that Topanga really needed to learn, and I thought it was taught really well.
absolutely. That was my main one, but the second one that I had, and I was going to mention, I mean, you took my Turner moment and my Turner taught me, but Alan taught me that he says you're growing up and it's not always easy in the real world.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really good. It's just been like, hey man, it's gonna get harder from here on out. And then Eric has like this fun moment of like, I'm going to Yale, and they're like, it may be a little bit easier in his world. Okay, homework. Oh wait, sorry. Before we get to homework, what grade are you giving this episode?
I'm giving this episode an A. I feel like it was a solid episode. I thought it had an emotional through line. I thought that we learned a lot about our central characters, and that Topanga and Shawn both grew, and I thought we saw a lot of mentorship from Turner. I just thought it was a good episode. So again, I wasn't like the most entertained by this episode, but I will say that it was just a solid, well-written episode. So
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an A minus. I
Yeah.
feel like this episode definitely has meat on the bones, and I think certain things could have been done better. I've already aired a lot of my grievances
Yeah.
with like Topanga kind of only being the girlfriend and not the activist, which is
Yeah.
what we know her as. And Alan's old school ways of thinking, and like they're just like, for me, it could have been a little bit tighter, but they really surprised me with their reasoning for Shawn having this pig,
Yeah.
and the comedy was there. So I think it's really a great Boy Meets World episode.
Absolutely, I agree.
Also, as I said, I think any other time I would have said this is an episode that I would have skipped, like at first look.
Yeah.
But I really do like that this episode, something so frivolous as there's a pig part of the cast, opens the door up into, oh, where are these three characters going to go, and with how they treat each other.
And this is what I hope to be a more recurring theme of the show, is that the episodes start getting tighter, and a lot of the things we used to complain about we see less and less of as they mature in their writing styles.
Absolutely. Okay, homework. What do you got?
Well, I was reading an article where the president of ABC was talking about how, they're looking to maybe do a spin-off of Fresh Off the Boat, spin-off of all these other shows, and then someone was like, ever since I got to the network, we have been trying to find a show like Happy Endings. This 3-season fan favorite cult classic.
So good.
That a bunch of people loved, but we haven't been able to find a show as similar to it, but we're thinking about just bringing it back. So
Oh my god.
I'm going to suggest that everyone go on Hulu and rewatch me and CJ's one of our favorite shows ever, Happy Endings. It's only 3 seasons. Give it some views. Give us a spike in views to hopefully propel ABC to bring the show back, because it's one of the most quickest, well-written sitcoms that we can remember from the past 10 years. And I just think it was something that really bonded us as well.
Happy Endings is definitely one of those shows where when I rewatch it, I understand why it turned people off. Because it needed... we were doing things week to week, and it needed that time to find its voice. And I think it was a show that would have benefited from this binge culture that we have, where you release everything at once and everyone could have watched everything at once, and they would have gotten the characters in a much quicker way than back when you and I first started watching it, where it was like, I remember being like, yo, did you watch Happy Endings? And every week we'd be like, yo, a new episode's out. But this was something that caught our attention very early on.
It was just a really, it took this classic sitcom format of a Friends or a How I Met Your Mother, but it modernized it in the way that it was shot single camera instead of 3 camera, and it was also something that was just written with the wit of an Aaron Sorkin as far as the quickness of it, but with the pop culture-ness of just the kids who grew up watching True Hollywood Stories
Absolutely.
us. And so it was just the perfect marriage of just great characters, great writing, and just these performances from these actors that just week to week just brought us back and we fell in love with. So I don't know.
A rom-com con.
It is. There's so many stupid
so many
jokes.
little things. It's what is it? It's
a gay turkey party.
Oh my god, a gay turkey party. And then I was thinking of you could be Braff all day, bro. I'm a skull. And it's just it's just really, all these are pop culture references stuffed into this TV show, and the characters were great. I remember a lot of people, first of all, interracial couple that's successful, and race is very rarely brought into the relationship, and if it is purely comedic, and they're
hilarious,
well aware of the joke.
Yeah.
And then Damon Wayans Jr.
phenomenal,
bringing in the Wayans charm perfectly,
and the perfect vessel for him as an actor.
Absolutely. And then you get
Casey Wilson is fantastic.
Casey Wilson is one of my boyfriend's favorite actresses.
Love her,
and she does amazing in her character. But then also I was gonna say, I think his name is who plays Max?
Adam Poley.
Adam Poley. Yeah, I thought that's what it was. But Adam Poley, him playing Max is hilarious, and he was kind of the very first televised version of a gay dude that was not a cliche gay dude.
Loved it.
He was the slob. He was the overweight one. He was but not in a very bitchy catty way. He was one of the boys, honestly probably one of the most masculine of the boys, but at the same time completely proud to be himself and gay, and it was just accepted.
Obviously, I can only say so much as a straight person, but I will say that this is my favorite portrayal of a gay person on television because it feels the most accurate to my relationships with my actual gay friends.
Absolutely.
So that's why I just really enjoyed what they did there.
I remember when I first saw it, I was like, yes, this is a gay version that I can identify with.
Sure.
Because, as you said, at the exact same time, when everyone's sharing their hookup stories, Penny's I slept with my psychologist. Dave is I slept with Alex last night and she wanted it. And Max goes right in and is I slept with the pizza guy. But it's just it's just as casual. He's allowed to be just as sexual, but also not be the gay character.
Sure.
So.
And also, we just haven't seen these characters since, they were around when Obama was in office. So it'll just be really interesting just to see how they've perceived just the changing of times.
Absolutely. I would love it. Oh, God, you made me happy just thinking about it.
Just stream it, guys. We'll bring it back.
Okay, so speaking of television shows, my homework this week is a show on HBO called Euphoria. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but basically it the story is of teenagers in high school, like a modern tale of 2019. And if you're a fan of Boy Meets World, of course you went back and you looked at, we're comparing a lot of our high school experiences to this show. But I found this show, I've only seen the first episode, but such an awakening into the modern high school tale. And this is not Boy Meets World. I will say that from the beginning. They are having sex. They are doing drugs. They show nudity. They are sleeping with adults, but they're not sleeping with adults in that whole Riverdale or 90210 type way of, it's like, no, in a very realistic, I am lying about my age and I'm signing up for something that I don't really understand situation. And it both made my heart hurt and made me so interested in the story of how we're telling teenagers' tales now. Because as much as it saddens me and it kind of freaks me out being older, it is so real. My best friend has like a stepdaughter and she's around this age, and seeing what she has to go through with addiction, with depression, with social media, and like they even kind of call that out. It's Zendaya is one of the main characters. And again, this show, I just could not speak. Like, the entry of it, the first 5 minutes, you were like, yes, these are children who have always been born in a world with danger. The main character talks about being born 3 days after 9/11. And it's like, what is it like to grow up in a world that always makes you feel anxious? And what's it like to be kind of helpless and in a position in life where the adults clearly don't have it together and everyone else is just competing for attention.
Sure.
So,
We'll check it out.
Absolutely. So check out Euphoria on HBO. That is our homework. Anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. So thank you guys for listening to Bro Meets World. Remember, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Play, all of those places. Make sure to leave us a rating. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, all the places, Instagram at Bro Meets World, or email us at bromeetsworld@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter, most likely live tweeting about Euphoria. So if you don't mind spoilers, just follow me and you'll get some more insight. But that's Extra Siege. That's XTRACEEJ TC.
You can find me at @braverme @braver.me on Instagram. And you know what, guys? Just go watch Happy Endings. Do me a favor and just, if you haven't seen the show, just go watch it for me, please. I'm begging you.
I'm pretty sure we put it as a homework before, but
I don't care. I do not care.
Like, you either are visiting an old friend, which you love, or you didn't do the homework last time, and that's on you.
Yeah. Guess who's Shawn in this scenario?
So remember to dream,
try,
and watch Happy Endings.
Later, bro.
Later, bro.